Hello, everybody. I'm David Frangioni, live from backstage at the Hard Rock. I'm here with Brandon Pertzborn. Brandon, how are you today, my man?
Doing great.
All right.
Honored to be here.
Great. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you. So we're here tonight for the Offspring show, but this is really a big chapter, but a chapter in your journey and your career. You've played with just some incredible artists, and I want to start at the beginning. Tell us, how did the drumming journey begin for you? How'd you find the drums? How old were you? Where did it start?
Wow, you're taking me back. I think I was in middle school, so probably 6th or 7th grade, and we had to choose between either band or athletics at school, and I was already playing hockey outside of school, so I didn't want to do an additional sport. So I thought, okay, I guess I'm going to do band, and drums looked the most fun. So I chose drums, and then I had a friend who also played drums, and I also took drum lessons. So in between my drum instructor and my friend who played drums, I was just learning beats as I was going, and my friend would show me like Fall Out Boy beats and Paramore drum beats, and I'm going, this is crazy. How do I couldn't wrap my head around it, I was like, even just, I remember the song Dance Dance by Fall Out Boy, and that was one of the first beats I learned, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm hooked. And then
it was an instant love affair with the drums.
Absolutely, but it took a lot of work. I wasn't natural at all, and it took years and years of just playing with my friends. I'd find friends who played guitar and bass and who would sing, and we'd play. And I was terrible for a while. And then one of the big things for me when I was a teenager, if you guys remember the Guitar Hero and Rock Band video games,
right? That
came out,
and now you're in high school, right?
I'm probably in high school, maybe 9th grade or so,
Okay.
Probably freshman. And I got the Rock Band video game. And at this point, I was an okay drummer. I could play simple grooves. And what was cool about the Rock Band video game was that if you play in expert mode, it shows the exact notes that the drummer's playing in that song. So there's a lot of things you don't get. You don't get the dynamics, you don't get the feel, you don't get the groove, but you can learn the exact notes. So once I got that down, I was going, oh, wow, I can kind of play any sort of rock and metal beat out there. And then it was a matter of just getting behind the real drums and applying, like I said, groove and feel and dynamics. And that's what I was doing up until I was 19. Was just playing with local bands, playing anywhere I could, playing with friends, teaching drum lessons. And then when I was 19, I got my first touring gig, which was Black Flag.
Now, before we get to Black Flag for a second, were you studying with a specific teacher, or is that whole journey playing with bands and just kind of figuring out as you go and Rock Band, Guitar Hero, et cetera?
I was studying with a teacher by the name of Ludo Baccarini in Dallas, Texas. And oh man, as much as he taught me physically on drums, I really learned the mentality from him in terms of what your role is as a drummer, in terms of what your role is in a band, what you need to provide. When I was a teenager, I look back on videos of me playing, and I was putting double kick drum over everything, doing as many, because that's what you do when you're a teenager.
Yeah,
you go, I want to play as fast as possible. I want everyone in the crowd to know I can do crazy things. And Ludo, my drum teacher, sat me down and told me, that's not what it's about. You're here to provide a layer for the band. You're the backbone. You're the heartbeat. You're not supposed to be shredding on top of everyone. So between him and then just playing locally and watching YouTube videos and just, I grew a lot in my teenage years just from all those things.
And I think we all overplay as kids, right? That's like the number one thing we have to kind of learn out of is the overplaying. And so you had the guidance of a great teacher. So then how did you get the gig with Black Flag?
So like I said, throughout my teenage years, I was playing all around town. I was playing with kids my age, but I was also teaching drum lessons. And so I had now in hindsight, the brilliant idea of putting an ad on Craigslist in the musicians section saying that I teach drums, I can do studio sessions, I can do touring, whatever you need, I'm your guy. And I linked some YouTube videos of me drumming. I did that in the morning. And then that night, Greg Ginn, the founding guitarist of Black Flag, reached out to me and said, hey, Black Flag's looking for a drummer. I watched your videos. I think you're great. Let me know if you're interested. Gave him a phone call that night, and a few days later, drove to his studio and auditioned. I heard back a few days later, and then I was in Black Flag at 19 years old. Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
And then how long did that tour go for?
So that was in 2014. That phone call, the genesis of that play started in March, and then we rehearsed in April, and then we hit the road in May, and then we toured that whole summer through August. And when I say it was a summer, I mean we did like 66 shows, I believe it was. So we toured very heavily that summer.
What kind of places are you playing?
House of Blues type places
Okay.
throughout the whole United States. And
So that's an incredible first tour.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
right out
I
of
mean,
high school.
yeah, I mean, it's early in your
Yeah.
career in life, and it's, you know, it's big enough venues that it's not overwhelming,
Sure.
but you're not starting at the local,
Yeah.
you know, kind of starter club level that you'd
Yeah.
already kind of, you know, gone through. You know, you'd already kind of played that scene. So this
Yeah.
was a great evolution.
And in Dallas, you know, I had done some shows at the House of Blues level, but most of the shows I were doing was to 20, 30, 40, 50 people maybe. And I did quite a few shows to 0 people. You know, we did those shows where the only people in the crowd are the band members' girlfriends, you know?
Sure. And we all do them.
Exactly. And it's great. You need to do that.
Right.
I wouldn't have changed that for the world. But once I joined Black Flag, it was, wow, I'm going on the road. We're playing at a venue every night where I know there's going to be people. And I couldn't believe it.
They were packed.
Packed, yeah. And it was my dream to tour, but I had no idea how to do it, you know?
Right.
So
They call you. I mean,
Call me, yeah.
but you put it out there. You put it in the
Yeah.
universe, and you got the call. And was it an audition?
It was an audition, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly.
And you
probably-
learned their material?
Oh, I learned everything I could. Yeah, I learned everything I could. I probably played through, I don't know, 8, 9, or 10 songs. And then got a call back a few days later, said, hey, we're doing this. We'll see you in a month. We're hitting the road.
Wow,
And
awesome.
I went straight into the deep end in terms of just learning and acquiring knowledge of what it takes to be a touring drummer, because it's much different than playing in your bedroom at home.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or gigging local,
Sure.
you know, whole
Certainly.
nother world. So what was the biggest lesson you learned from that first tour when you look back?
I think for me, yeah, in terms of Black Flag, it was the stamina and the energy it takes to play a punk rock show for 90 minutes to 2 hours a night, 5 to 6 days a week, 5 to 6 nights a week.
Wow.
That's a lot, you know? And so it's
You have to pace yourself.
you're pacing yours. And yeah, that was huge. And even realizing, oh, I should probably stretch before I play. I should probably warm up. I need to take care of myself. I need to eat well.
Mhm.
And honestly, it was a lot of things like that in terms of, wow, I'm kind of an athlete out here, you know? And because like I said, it's much different than just playing shows locally every Friday night or every Saturday night. Now you're playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then one off day, then you're doing it again, you
Right,
know?
right.
So yeah, just preparing yourself and staying healthy, and also learning the etiquette of being on the road, the etiquette of living with, because you're essentially living with your band members, you know?
Right,
So
right.
you're learning, oh, in this regard, I should act like this. In this regard, I shouldn't do this. And yeah, it was
Huge lessons. I mean, at
Yeah.
any age, they're huge lessons, but at that age, they're life-changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all these lessons I've learned in music, they're universal lessons. So you apply them in all walks of life, you know? But oh yeah, a lot of learning back then. Yeah.
And then what happened after Black Flag tour was done?
So that was done in probably August of 2014. They had told me at that point, they said, okay, we're going to take quite a few months off, you know? And I realized we might not go on the road until the next summer. So I'm thinking, well, what do I do? Do I go back home to Dallas, or do I try to keep doing this thing in a different capacity? And so I ended up moving out to Los Angeles in probably September of 2014. And I knew very few people in the music industry out there. So it was very daunting to move out there. But luckily I had a friend out there, and he told me, he said, hey, reach out to this guy. He knows everyone out there. If there's a band looking for a drummer, this guy will be aware of it. So I reached out to him, and then I found there was this band out of Southern California named With Our Arms to the Sun. And they were about to go on tour opening for Doyle from the Misfits. And then they were doing another tour opening for John 5 from formerly Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie. So we went on tour opening for those two artists.
You got that gig.
I got that gig. Yes.
Another audition.
That was my first, yeah, that was my first audition and first gig in Los Angeles, which was a big deal for me because, moving to LA is very daunting.
Oh, yeah.
It's like.
Especially starting from scratch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard at any level, but starting from
yeah.
scratch is the hardest.
I remember always thinking, LA, New York, Nashville. I was thinking, man, all the best players are there. How am I going to find my way in there, And yeah, it was one step at a time. And I joined that band. And then, like I said, we opened for John 5 and Doyle. And then after that Doyle run that we opened for, Doyle's tour manager called me and she said, hey, I think we're looking for a new drummer. What are you doing this next month? She said, we're going to be playing the Whiskey in LA in 3 days. Can you learn the set in 3 days and finish out the whole run with Doyle? And I'm thinking, of course. I just moved to LA and now I might be playing with Doyle from the Misfits, right?
So back up for a second. September of 14, you're in LA. When do you get the gig to go out and be the opener? How fast does it happen?
That was in, I want to say January.
Okay.
But September to January felt like a very long time to me.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what did you do? How'd you survive, and how did you kind of keep your positive energy up?
Luckily, yeah, I was still, 19, so still only a year out of high school. And to back up even more, I had met my girlfriend a few months prior. She's now my wife. We've been together for 10 years.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I had met her, and she was born and raised in Long Beach, which is in the Los Angeles area.
Sure.
So that was one of the reasons I also thought, well, okay, she's out there. The whole music industry's out there. So I was living with her family at the time when I was 19.
Okay.
So luckily I had a roof over my head.
Okay, so you didn't have the stress of paying rent, so to speak.
Because I was 19. I would have,
Right, that's a tough.
Oh, tough. Yeah, for sure. So they brought me in for a little bit, and oh my gosh, that changed my life.
And then you get the gig.
Yeah.
And then now you're out with Doyle.
Now I'm out with Doyle, and now I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've won the lottery twice. I got Black Flag last year, and now I get Doyle from the Misfits. And now I'm thinking, wow, I guess it's so weird how I've gotten into this punk rock world, playing with Black Flag and Doyle from the Misfits.
Right.
Growing up, I would not consider myself a punk rock drummer.
Who were you inspired by? Who were the drummers that really you looked up to and either influenced you, where you actually tried to play their parts and integrate it into your playing style, and also or inspired you? Yeah, because a lot of times they're two different drummers.
Absolutely, it's a great question. Growing up in my household, my parents played a lot of classic rock. So my mom loves The Who. She loves the Stones. My dad loves Boston, the Cars. Oh my gosh, yeah. So all classic rock music was played in my house. So that was in my blood. And then when I really got into music, I think I mentioned it earlier, it was a lot of what was popular at the time, which was Fall Out Boy,
right.
Paramore, Panic at the Disco. So that was the stuff I was, that's what really inspired me initially, was I'd say the early 2000s type of stuff.
Okay. And and you were playing that stuff, as you said, but what about for drummers? Were you like Gad, Peart, Buddy, like where did you fall, and who were the drummers?
It was all over the board. Certainly, oh my gosh, Alex Van Halen, huge. John Bonham, huge. All the classic rock guys, those were huge. And then, like I said, when I got into my own style, it probably was like Fall Out Boy's drummer, Andy Hurley, Zach Farrell from Paramore, And then I remember I got into grunge a lot. So Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. So you got Matt Cameron, huge inspiration. And getting into Soundgarden taught me all about odd time signatures. Going, wow, okay, now that's a whole new frontier, Yeah. And then in my later teenage years, I got really into metal, heavily into metal, which helped me out to then get into punk rock world.
Because it's speed, you're into speed.
And a lot of the thrash stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty similar to the double time punk rock stuff.
Right.
So I already had, I'd learned the culture of the metal music, which requires stamina, precision.
But you adapted to Black Flag, not coming from that. Like you said, it's like, that's the incredible thing about it, is like, you weren't trying to be specifically in the punk rock genre, but you get this huge punk rock gig, and then you get another one right after it. So now all of a sudden you are in that genre, you know, and so you embraced it. What happened? What happened as the Doyle thing is winding down, and you're now realizing you just got two incredible gigs in a very short period of time at a very young age, and they're in the same genre, which kind of just, which you put yourself in and stayed in.
Yeah. So I played. So yeah, Black Flag was in 2014. Doyle was in 2015, 2016, and I believe maybe part of 2017. So at least 2 years, maybe 2.5.
Oh, so Doyle was a long run.
Oh yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, within those 2 to 2.5 years, we were playing heavily. I mean, hundreds of shows I played with him. We
Okay.
toured nonstop.
Gotcha.
So now I feel like I'm a seasoned touring drummer, you know, like
At 22 or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, because like I
the
said,
ages.
the amount of shows we did with Doyle in 2 years could have been 10 years of shows, you know? So I did that to 2017, and then I joined a band called Horror and had a great time with them. They're a mixture of punk rock with metal. There's a lot of hip hop and rap influences in there too.
Okay.
So then it's still aggressive music under the same umbrella, but really varied.
And no electronics. Obviously, the punk wouldn't
there was
have
some
it,
electronics with Horror, yeah.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
horror, now you're in,
Yep.
because if you're saying it's rap and has other
Exactly.
genres, now there could be like some drum loops or.
I have an SPD pad in this band.
So that's
Yeah.
evolving in that lane.
Totally. And so now I'm learning even more, right? And playing more styles. And
And how did you do that? How did you adapt to having an SPDSX, let's say, or that? Like, how did that find its way into the rig? Like somebody in the band or the musical director or somebody said, "Hey, you need to have these sounds."
Yeah.
Like,
There was
what happened?
There was a musical director with that band, and he suggested we use the SPD for some particular sounds.
Okay.
And oh man, that was great to do, because then you're memorizing. Because with drums, you got the hi hat, snare, toms, cymbals, but the SPD, it's just 9 black squares that all look the same.
Right.
So you're having to memorize the patterns of where things are.
Right.
And I remember with Horror, with this band, each song. So say for one song, it would be hi-hat is here, I don't know, tom is here, snare is here, etc. And then the next song, it would be different. It'd be snare is here, hi-hat is here. So I'm having to memorize for each song completely different patterns with different corresponding pads. And so just memorization and that and muscle memory helped out so much. So, and that was throughout 2017. Oh man, that was 2017, 2018, in the beginning of 2019.
So
And-
another long run.
Another long run, yeah.
And again, you're touring. Is this all U.S., all of this touring?
United States, Europe, a lot of, probably more Europe than the US, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're learning international and you're
International,
learning
yeah.
work visas and you're learning,
Yes.
you better have your passport
Yeah.
current and all of these things that aren't in drum lessons.
And that's huge what you just said, that aren't in drum lessons. And that's, to me, what I learned in going on the road is that, wow, there's not a blueprint for this stuff. There's not you can't go to college. I mean, maybe to a degree, but you can't really go to college and they'd say, this is what it's like to go on the road. You don't know it until you go out there and figure it out.
Or you have a mentor.
Or you have a mentor, which is great as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to learn. And so that was great.
So now, if I'm not mistaken, Brandon, during your Horror time, those years of touring and working with that band, you played with Corey Taylor.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of 2019. And man, I was born in 94. So when I was coming up, Slipknot was huge for me. Learning all those parts, and Stone Sour was huge for me. And so I always had massive respect for Corey. So did a few shows with him, one of them in Los Angeles, the other one in Orange County, California. And man, just playing with someone like him where music and artistry just runs through his blood, it's inspiring. So even though I only did a couple shows with him, those left an impact on me on just the approach he has.
Was it his acoustic
No,
show?
they were full band.
Full band?
It was fun. It was all cover songs. It was like 2 hours of just like classic rock cover songs, but the Corey Taylor spin on all of them, you know?
How did you get the gig?
Oh man, how did I get the gig? Just mutual friends. Just being,
You were recommended?
Exactly.
So say
Yeah.
Corey was putting the band together. They say call Brandon.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
There it was.
Yeah. And like I said, one of the things I learned from Corey was just being around someone as inspirational as him, where music runs through his blood, and just being able to perform with him and play with him and see how he conducts himself and how respectful he is to everyone. And just musically just going, wow, I want to be like this. This guy, like music is in his blood and you can feel it. And that's why people love him. And he's inspirational because you can sense the sincerity when he plays. And so that's what I took away from it is, wow, that's how I want to be, you know? So did that in the beginning of 2019. And then after that, that's when Manson came into play. So now we're to that point now.
Oh,
Yeah.
and is John 5 in Marilyn Manson?
He was not at the time. He was in Manson in the early 2000s.
Okay.
But
when you arrived there, he's out.
He's out. Yes.
Okay. Because you had toured backing him up, like in the warming him up, I should say,
Yes.
opening.
Yeah, opening. Yeah,
but now you're in Manson. You're in Manson.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like
and
I
that
said,
had to be a whole trip in and of itself.
So like I said, I moved to Los Angeles September of 2014, and then the very beginning of 2015 is when I was in a local band called With Our Arms to the Sun, and we opened up for John 5. So that was 2015. So now fast forward to 2019, John 5 still has my phone number, and we're staying in touch a bit throughout the years. And he calls me February of 2019 and says, "Hey man, Manson's looking for a drummer. Wanted to know if you'd be interested, and I'll put your name in the hat."
Wow.
I said, "Yeah, man. Why wouldn't I give that a shot?"
Sure.
You know. So I made some videos of me playing some Manson songs, sent it in to the management, and then I got notified they wanted to bring me down for an audition. So I auditioned for Manson, did 2 different auditions with the band, and then one with Manson also. And then I joined Marilyn Manson, and that was in spring and summer of 2019.
Incredible. And then that's another tour run, or did you do a record, or what was
Did
your...
a record? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Even before I played my first show with Manson, tracked a record.
And where'd you record it?
That was in LA with Shooter Jennings, who's Waylon Jennings' son, produced that record.
Nice.
And again, another huge learning experience, you know, because I had certainly tracked records before, but now it's with Marilyn Manson. So that's
Right.
You got to take that seriously.
Right.
You know? And
Sure.
you come in and you humble yourself and you say, what can I learn from this experience? You know, and so that was great. And then we did a whole summer of playing shows. One of the tours was a co-headline with Rob Zombie. It was in arenas across the U.S. So now this is my first. It was a co-headline, but felt like a headline tour. You know,
Sure.
almost the same.
And those are the
places.
biggest places. I mean, you
Oh
play
yeah,
in
I
arenas now.
played some arenas.
First
before.
arena tour, right?
First
Actual
arena tour.
tour.
I'd played to some arenas, but yeah, that was my first arena tour.
How exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be just...
yeah, and you're playing, you know, like Sweet Dreams, and you're looking out and see all the, not lighters anymore, but you're seeing all the cell phone lights, you know?
Right, right.
18,000 people, and I'm just going, wow. And I'm, I don't know, 23 or 24 years old, just going,
Incredible.
oh my goodness, this is unbelievable, you know? And I learned a lot from playing with Manson. And
What was the biggest thing you learned?
oh my gosh. Well, you know, Gil Sharon was my predecessor in that. So he was playing with Manson prior to me, and just studying his videos and studying, because, you know, obviously with Manson, there's a lot of electronic drum parts. So I studied a lot how Gil would take the electronic drum parts and translate them to an acoustic drum set, you know? And some of that goes back to Ginger Fish was doing a lot of that. So I learned a lot from Ginger. Oh my gosh, Ginger's amazing. So it was studying Gil and seeing how did he take these electronic drum parts and voice them on the acoustic drum set. And I learned a lot from doing that, studying him. I learned a lot in regards to playing with an artist like Marilyn Manson. And something interesting in that band is the drummer's the only one with the click track, and the drummer's the only one with in-ear monitors. So if there's any moment in the song where you're not playing, you're keeping quarter notes on that closed hi-hat for everyone. And so that's quite a responsibility to know that I'm the only one with the click track, and I got to keep everyone.
And every song was to a click?
Every song's to a click.
Live.
Absolutely. And so you're, yeah, like I said, if there's 1 second with no live drums, you're going back to quarters on that hat.
Right.
And then you're also trying to think how to do that musically. So there's some parts where you're opening the hats on 4, going into the downbeat, and there's different ways of keeping time, but doing it in a musical way.
Right. So it doesn't just sound like a metronome on stage.
Yeah. So there's different ways of doing that. Learned a whole lot with Manson, and I did that up until, as we all know now, COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So the beginning of 2020. Yeah, took me up until that.
And then during COVID, you back to the shed,
Back to the shed, yeah, because
and
no touring, obviously.
Right, of course.
And I remember thinking at first when we heard the news about COVID, oh, cool, we'll have a couple weeks off. I'll be at home for a couple weeks. This will be a good break. And then
a
that
couple years.
Turned into a year and a half, which was not cool. But,
and do you pick it back up with Manson at that point, or what happens?
So no, at that point, Manson was essentially on hiatus. And so I'm thinking, all of 2020, no touring, obviously. And then summer of 21, I get a call from Limp Bizkit saying, "Hey, we're about to go out in 10 days." I remember, yeah. Fred called and he said, "We're going to go out in 10 days. Would you be able to do that with us? Do a few weeks with us?" And I said, "Of course." And I'm so excited because this is, like I said, summer of 21. So we get through all of COVID. And then I'm thinking, yes, I'm back out playing again, right? So I ended up doing, I don't know, maybe a few weeks to a month with Limp Bizkit, summer of 21.
Okay.
And
Sheds?
I'm sorry?
Sheds?
Well, it was mostly festivals. Like Lollapalooza was one of them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think it was mostly festivals.
Whole nother learning experience.
I learned so much.
Now you're on festivals
and talk
where
about,
there's no sound check usually.
No sound. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, no sound check and no click track at all. And I only had a little over a week to prepare. And the good thing about when you play to a click is that you never have to second guess. Am I playing too fast? Am I playing too slow?
Right.
You're on it because you're on the click.
Right.
So Limp Bizkit has no click. So not only within 7 to 10 days am I memorizing the whole set, but I'm having to really nail down the tempos, which is quite stressful.
Sure.
Within that short period of a time. So doing that, and then what I took away most from Limp Bizkit was how unbelievably unique their drummer is, John Otto, who I was filling in for. And that guy is an absolutely incredible drummer. When you listen to Limp Bizkit, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's hard rock, it's metal, it's just rock music. But the hip hop rap element they have to it and the swing that the drums have was definitely a learning experience for me. And I feel like
it's a lot harder.
A lot harder because it's a mental thing. Because if you're a drummer, you can quote unquote learn any of these Limp Bizkit songs, but it doesn't mean you got the right feel for it. And so every ghost note that John played on those records, they're all swung and they have a certain feel to it. And John is very one of a kind with his feel. So I was studying that and telling myself, okay, even though I have the notes memorized, I got to get this feel right. So it's just that swing. So that was
nuance.
The nuance, all of it, and the dynamics of all the ghost notes. That's what makes Limp Bizkit special. You're not just playing through the beats, like reading a chart, playing through it. You're getting down all the ghost notes, the dynamics, the swing, the feel, and that's what makes that band special.
And then what happens? What happens after that? That you kind of go to the next chapter.
Yeah, so that was summer of 21. And then, that wraps up. John Otto comes back, and they've been trucking along with him, which is amazing. I love that guy's playing.
Did you get to meet him?
No, I haven't met him. I would love to, though. I think we're playing a festival with them tomorrow, actually, in Daytona Beach.
Oh,
so,
awesome.
Yeah, hopefully I can say hi to the guys and, meet John. He's a huge inspiration to me. So that ended August of 21. And then talk about serendipitous timing. A week after that, I'm going, okay, well, what's next? And Mike Muir from Suicidal Tendencies calls me the following week. So
just randomly calls you.
Yeah. And, I had done a few years ago, I did a one-off show with them opening for the Misfits. So I'd played with them one show a few years prior. But he calls and said, hey, Dave Lombardo's been drumming with us, but he's busy right now. Would you want to start playing for us? I said, absolutely. So then I started playing with Suicidal, which was great because for those who don't know, Suicidal's, oh my gosh, I guess you just call them a punk rock band, but they have so many different styles and elements. The punk, there's the metal, they got lots of rock, but they got the funk and the groove to them. So it was cool because I already had all the punk elements, but from just playing recently with Limp Bizkit, I had all the groove and the swing elements too that I was able to apply. And so immediately I was able to identify, wow, I've improved a lot from playing with Limp Bizkit because I felt the newfound swing I was playing with,
Mm-hmm.
And
that you weren't called to play in a Manson or a punk rock setting, where it's a harder, heavier, faster kind of vibe. And are you playing double kick through all of these years that we're talking about?
Yeah. I grew up playing double kick, double kick. But I'm trying to think. Black Flag didn't have double kick. Manson barely had any. The band Horror had a lot. Limp Bizkit. So no, I wasn't playing a lot.
but you could
Oh
play
yeah, I
it.
had
Like
it
it
in
was
my back.
part of your
Yeah, I had it in my back pocket.
your
Because
skill set.
Because as a teenager, I was always playing double kick, so I
Okay.
had it in my back pocket and definitely had to pull it out for Suicidal.
Sure, of course. And then that run, are you just touring or you're also recording with them?
Actually, I did a session with them, and those tracks have not seen the light of day yet. But yeah,
Okay.
did quite a few tracks. But yeah, toured with them September of 2021 up until I joined the Offspring now.
And
which
here you
was
are, the Offspring.
March of last year, March of 23, I joined. Yep.
And all of these gigs, like you're sideman, right? You're a work for hire sideman
Sure.
that's going from one gig to the other.
Yep.
But the way you describe it, it's like everything falls into place in such a natural flow. Like there's no, I didn't have any idea. Like, for months I wondered, will the phone ever ring again? Like your career at such a young age, but for 10 years, basically, it's just been going one after the other after the other. Clearly, a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're a great drummer and that you have great etiquette on the road. And obviously the word on the street's got to be, hey, you could really count on Brandon. Like he's great. And, that goes without saying. And all those things are huge. But I have to ask, because there's almost like an energy about this that follows you in such a positive, like optimistic, and it's not luck. But it is good fortune. That's what the story sounds like.
Sure.
I know you're leaving out some of the hardship days, but it doesn't sound like there's a ton of them, right? There's no such thing as everything's great and perfect.
Yeah.
But how do you respond to that? Like, because how has it happened and what's really going on behind the scenes, that it's not also like, hey, I hung up the phone with this guy and then 5 minutes later the phone rang and another guy called, and like what's the real story behind there that we can learn from?
I think the biggest thing to learn from it, and what I tell myself constantly, it's cliche, but it's just the hard work and it's the determination put behind it and being meticulous about what you're doing. And it's also the easy things that anyone can do, and I guess they're easier said than done, but showing up on time, being punctual, being respectful, especially like you were mentioning as a hired gun drummer, but any musician, for example, it's knowing your place, right? And knowing that I'm not a founding member of this band, So yeah, my voice matters. If I see something and if I have an idea, I'll speak up, of course. But ultimately, it's being respectful of everyone in the room and knowing this is what my role is. This is what I'm here to do. It's not to say, hey guys, you need to do this. No, that's not my role. And if anyone has constructive criticism, it's going, cool. And even if you can't wrap your head around it immediately, what advice they're giving you, just going, cool, let me sleep on that. I'll figure that out. I see what you're saying there. And always just being positive about that and
open.
And open.
I mean, there's a humility to what you're describing that's powerful, because you're playing amazing, but you're also able to hear if what you thought worked, someone who's actually running the band, let's say, doesn't think it worked.
Exactly.
And you're open to the fact that you're going to explore what is my boss, quote unquote. And this is coming from a fellow, as we know each other's careers, right? I've been a side man, if you will, in my role, working with some incredible bands for many, many years, and constantly learning from it and constantly being in a role. I always say the role is to serve. Yeah. Right? That's that's number one. And nothing comes ahead of it. And then within that are all the mechanics of, well, how do we serve? And how do we do it with an open mind and attitude that's has great energy, I guess you would say. So people feel like they can come back to you again and go, oh, wow, he implemented that. So I'd really like if he implemented this too, and not feeling like there's a wall between you and the artist. Does all of that resonate? I
could not have said it better. You articulated that so well. And that's so important. And again, when you ask me, what did I learn with Black Flag on the road? What did I learn with this band? It's all of those elements that you just outlined. Because now with YouTube and everything, you can learn any song you want. There's so many good drummers out there, but it's so much more than that. It's also, what's the hang like? Because think about it, 24 hours in a day, if your show is only an hour a day, that's 23 more hours you got with this person every day. And if you're on the road for a month straight, geez, what's 23 hours times 30 days?
Right.
And so you got to be a good hang. You got to be just a normal, cool, easygoing person. And that's just in addition to actually being good at the instrument. So
Right.
there's a lot of
Which is such a
elements to
huge
it.
part. No, a
Absolutely.
lot of elements. But and for such a young guy, did you have an upbringing that your parents or someone in your life was guiding you? Because you just seem so together. And at such a young age, that's a lot of wisdom to have gained. So did it come from your family, or where did it come from?
Yeah, I think my family. I think my parents. I think I've always been someone to. I think there's two types of people: people who learn by example and who learn through observation, and people who don't do that and have to learn through
The hard way?
the hard way, and then they learn from that. And I've always learned from the latter, or sorry, from the former, which has been just learning by observation. And my parents are great examples, and just how they still do live their lives day in and day out. But certainly when I was growing up with them, just watching how they communicate with people and the respect they have. Because all these qualities, they're universal qualities, right? It's not like, oh, I play drums, so in my work environment, I talk to people like this. And my dad's a businessman, so he talks to people like this. No, you just treat people with respect. And like I said, you show up on time. And I've always learned through just observing, wow, I want to be like that. Or, man, that guy, I don't, that doesn't look like it worked out well for him, you know? But no,
Learning from both success and failures.
absolutely, yeah. And then throughout my high school years, I was homeschooled because I had expressed to my parents, man, this music thing is what I want to do. And if I'm at school 8 hours a day, you know, I can't practice as much as I want to. So my mom homeschooled me. And so I just had a great,
That's supportive.
I had a great support system at home. And, I mean, I owe, geez, 99% to that alone.
To your parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's such a huge difference. When I speak to successful musicians who had that parental support, it's such a progressive and such a beautiful, beneficial path if it's there.
Yeah.
And if it's not there, for the musicians out there who don't have that, you want to find the same stability and qualities that brings.
Agreed.
Right? So either way, you kind of, because you got to end up at the same place, whether that's the good fortune or not of how your life plays out, right? Because we can't always control that. But I had that from my parents. You had that from your parents. And it's huge.
Yeah.
And so how's everything going with the Offspring? How's the tour going?
Amazing. So like I said, I joined Offspring around March or April of last year, which is 2023. So it's funny, you know, throughout the year, I'll give you a little history on how I joined. Throughout the years, I've put up drum covers on YouTube and social media. And I put up a cover of me playing their song Hammerhead last January. So probably January of 23. And once March of 23 rolls around, I get a call from their manager saying, hey, Offspring's looking for a drummer. We've checked out the video you posted. We love it. How about you come on down and jam with the guys? And I'm thinking, oh man, this would be the coolest thing in the world. I grew up, obviously, like anyone my age, loving Offspring and hearing the songs on the radio. I mean, all the songs are ubiquitous. I mean, everyone knows them and cherishes them. So I thought, wow, this is a cool opportunity. And all the different styles of music the Offspring has really appealed to me. It's got a lot of the double time punk stuff. It has some groove stuff. I love all that. So went down, jammed with, whether you want to call it an audition or a jam, either or, did that. And then they reached out the following day actually and said, hey, let's do this thing. So I've been on the road with them since our first tour was, I think, April of last year. We've gone all over Europe, all over the States, South America. And it's such a fun time. And this is my home now. This is where I'm going to be.
Oh,
and,
that's awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you really, it's the evolution has continued with quite an important chapter in your journey. You're loving playing with these guys.
I'm loving it. And with some of the bands I've played with in the past, you know, I knew it was just going to be a temporary thing, or I thought it would be long-term. And for one reason or another, it ended up transitioning to something else. But with Offspring, I mean, I've made it clear. It's like, this is where I want to be, you know, and I'm having the time of my life, musically, professionally, and personally here. It hits all the nails on the head. And I love it here. And we get along so well. We all hang out all the time. And musically, we're all on the same page, where we all grew up with the punk rock way of music, but we all enjoy all styles of music. You know what I mean? Which is really cool.
Right. So there's a great chemistry.
Great chemistry. And we're all on the same page with that, where, like I said, we all love punk rock, but man, we want to play and listen and enjoy all styles of music, and there's no limits to that. And so we just all inherently get along really well. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I would ask you about your drums, cymbals, and endorsements, but it's going to be answered in your rundown that we're going to do. So please, everybody, check out the Modern Drummer Drum Rundown that we're going to have with Brandon, and that's coming soon. So please check that out. In the meantime, anything else you want to share before we head out? Any any words of wisdom and inspiration?
Words of wisdom and inspiration. Wow. I think for anyone out there wanting to do this for a career, just do it because you love it. And the same mentality and the same ethos I had when I was playing with friends as a teenager is the same guiding path that's led me to where I am now. And you just do it because you love it. And if you do that and you do it because your heart's in it, it doesn't feel like work. And certainly some aspects do, right? Some aspects do.
And there's a
feel like
lot
work.
of hard work.
There's
that
a
goes
lot of
into
hard
it.
work, but I mean, but you're compelled to do it if your heart is in it for the right reasons. And
Right.
when you get a big task handed to you, you go, "Oh, I want to do this." Rather
Right.
than if it's a job you don't like, you go,
Right.
"I don't want to do this big task." But since if your heart is in it, when you get those big tasks and you get that pressure, you go, "I'm up for it. I'm going to figure this out one way or another, no matter how nervous you are." And so if you're in it for the right reasons and you love it and you feel like it's your calling, just keep doing it. Keep meeting people, keep getting out there. And that's all I've done. Yeah.
Right. And hard work coupled with determination, with the passion you're referring to.
Yeah.
It was always about furthering your musical journey.
Yeah.
And then everything that comes with it is just, it's
Yeah.
just part of it.
And I don't want people to think that everything I've done's been easy. Dude, there's been so many times where I go, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I literally don't know how I'm going to learn this amount of songs in this many days or do this or that. But what I always tell myself is, one way or another, I'm going to have to figure it out.
And you do.
If this is what I want to do, I'll have to figure it out. I'll have to put my head down, get to work, and one way or another, it'll be all right. And even if I mess up, whatever. It's not like I'm going to die. I'll survive and I'll learn from it. And so I don't want it to sound like, oh, I'm just a genius and I've never had issues and everything's come easy. It's just the thing where my heart is so in this, I'm so invested that I just go, I'll figure it out one way or another. And like I said, if I make a mistake, if this ends up being a train wreck, I'll learn from it. And at the end of the day, I'm just playing drums, right? I'm not the president. I'm not, I'm just playing drums.
But there's a fearlessness in what you're describing, because on all the challenges you've had, you haven't failed at any of them, right? Your determination has outweighed and out persevered the failure that could have come from the same path, right? Because all these paths you're describing, they either work out and you learn the songs or you don't. And I know your attitude that you're sharing is, hey, that's what it's going to be. It's either going to work out and they're going to say, great, you got the gig, or they're going to say, oh no, man, it's not happening. And then you look back and potentially say, oh, well, I didn't have enough time to learn the songs or whatever. But in every case you did somehow, right? Whether it was like nearly impossible or not. So that's really to me, I take from that a lot of inspiration in that you pulled it off. And what you're saying is you didn't pull it off because, you had enough time or the songs were easy. You pulled it off because no matter what the challenge was, and some of them, if not many of them, were, more likely failure than meeting the challenge. You pulled it off because you didn't see any other result. You basically looked at it like, I'm getting this done. And I feel that because I've been in a lot of situations like that where it really, the odds were stacked so far against me and people were like, oh, they were giving me outs before I even got to the end, right? Because they figured he's going to fail anyway, so let's be compassionate.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
And you
absolutely,
didn't.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, it's the truth. And I appreciate the hard work and perseverance that requires, because it's not, yes, the willpower is probably number one in that, but there's a lot of action that has to go with that willpower to actually pull it off.
It's so good. I think something I remind myself of all the time throughout my whole career is how blessed I am to be able to get to do this. Even how blessed I am that I have the ability to drum and to make music. I mean, how many people would kill for that? So with that, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and maybe even subconsciously, I put pressure on myself to go, no, I can't mess around. I need to show up prepared. I need to respect this music. And
And you
again,
need to succeed.
I need to succeed. How blessed am I to be able to, again, have the talent, have the ability, but also have the opportunity? Because how many people have the talent and the ability, but they don't get the opportunity?
Yeah.
So I've always told myself, if I'm going to get this opportunity, if I'm blessed enough to get that, I better take it seriously.
And make the most of it.
Exactly.
And it's worked. And I hope it continues to work. And I think with your attitude and your approach, it's going to keep working. We certainly wish you the best. Thank you for being here today. I'm David Frangioni for the Modern Drummer Podcast. Check out the rundown we're doing with Brandon. In another video, I want you to see his rig live from On Stage with Offspring. And thank you, everybody, for watching the Modern Drummer Podcast. We'll see you again soon. Be well. Good?